Here we go again. Another satanic lie that needs a video, a quite lengthy video, I might add, so that you'll understand how the enemy works. I had to calm down, in fact, before I even started the video because it's so outrageous and it angers me so much. And I had to address another foolish brother talking about men who are emotional over the scriptures are effeminate. And he don't understand that that's called zeal. And if you don't have great burning zeal for Yahuwah and his word, then you worthless. Like he said, be you hot or cold, but don't be lukewarm. So pay no mind to them ignorant brothers that were never chosen to teach that speak such foolishness. Because the prophets like Elijah and Jeremiah, even King David, even the sons of Levi had so much zeal that they killed for Yahuwah. Even King Yahoo. Elijah slew many. I think it was the sons of Levi who gathered themselves at the bottom of the mountain after most people were partying and clowning, and Marsha and Joshua came back. And he ordered them to put each man his sword on his side and go through the crowds and slay every one of them. And that pleased Yahuwah. Why? Because we removed rebellion and evil from amongst us. So after now that I've addressed that, I want to address a parable that's circulating on Facebook. I'm going to try to show it to you so you know what it looks like. It's got a man, a heathen or whatever you want to call him, with a big slaughtered cow. And I want you to understand, now this is going to be a little lengthy video, but blessed are you who sit through it and understand how the enemy works. And it angers me, but I've calmed down. Let's get to reading. First, I will read to you the lie. And then I will read to you the actual parable that His Majesty spoke. See, Satan will take the truth and corrupt it. And whoever wrote this was not called to teach. I don't care if it was a Hebrew or a heathen. Because the discernment is only given unto his elect branches, which are always Hebrew Israelite men. Okay? So let's get started. Here's the lie. And it sounds good. I think some 25,000 people clicked like on it until I came down hard on it because I can't stand these kind of lies. They will deceive you and you can possibly and potentially you lose your very soul behind lies like this. I hope this don't go over 25 minutes. So we're 3 minutes into it. Let's get started. Listen, I'm going to read it. It says, a man slaughtered a big cow, lit the grill, and said to his daughter, okay, that was the first thing. I said, where did I hear this from? Daughter, call our loved ones and neighbors to eat with us. Let us feast. Okay, when I'm reading this, I said, man, this sounds like a parable. I said, let me read on and see where this goes. And I know I was led to read this so that I could show you the devil in it. So his daughter took to the street and started shouting, please help us put out a fire at my dad's house. After a few moments, a small group of people came out and the rest acted like they didn't hear the cries for help. Those who came and ate and drank until swollen. I'm like, until swollen. They could have said until full, but they said until swollen. The stunned father turned to his daughter and said to her, I don't know any of the people who came. I have never seen them before. Where are our loved ones, family, and colleagues? The daughter said, these people came out of their homes to help us put out a fire in our house, not for the party. These are the ones who deserve our generosity and hospitality. Conclusion. Those who won't help you during your struggle shouldn't eat with you at your victory. Oh, that sounds good. I like that. Let's share that. But that's a lie from the pits of hell, and it blasphemes against His Majesty's parable of the wedding feast. And first of all, His Majesty, before I read it, when he sent out his daughter, I knew that was a lie right there because men are the ones that are sent. And it reminds me of the book of Judith. I think it was the Judith, which a lot of people think was spiritually motivated, but it ain't. But I won't get into that. I'll save that for another time. It ain't. And I posted a writing on that. So let's go to the original parable, which can be found in Matthew chapter 22, verses 1 through 14. Again, that's Matthew chapter 22, verses 1 through 14. And it reads as follows. And Yahushua answered and spoke unto them again by parables. Why did he speak in parables? Because the mystery was hidden from the masses. He only wanted his elect, his servants. His servants was the 12, which were all men. The elect in this day are still men and Hebrew Israelites. But we will find out in this parable that the other one blasphemed. Remember, to blaspheme means to mimic falsely or to copy, to impersonate. That's what blaspheme means. So that other parable was blasphemous. Nevertheless, let's start over again. I'm going to try not to interrupt. And Yahushua answered and spoke unto them again by parables and said, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a certain king which made a marriage for his son. So he's throwing a feast. We see the parallels. And sent forth his servants to call them that were bidden to the wedding. And they would not come. Now, keep in mind, as servants of men, you can find that in Ezekiel 34:31. That's just one of many verses. Revelation 21:12. They're always Hebrew Israelite man. The Apostle Paul said, we're the elect branches. I think it's Romans 11:18, just for starters. And he sent forth other servants, saying, tell them which are bidden. When he said, tell those which are bidden, this is a parable which means Israel, the so-called Negroes. He only sent his servants unto us. The servants were the prophets of old. Let's rightfully discern this parable and show the lie in the other one. So he sent forth his prophets unto the house of Israel and told them which are bidden, behold, I have prepared my dinner. My oxen and my fatlings are killed, and all things are ready. Come unto the marriage. But they made light of it. We know Israel is a stubborn and exceedingly stiff-necked house. Even from the scriptures, they were always disregarding the words of the prophets, and oftentimes they killed them. And he says, and they went their ways, one to his farm, another to his merchandise. Don't you see it now? The prophets, the elect are calling out. What are folks doing? They're doing their party, and they're going their way. They're doing their thing. It tells you all the time in scripture that Israel is a stiff-necked, stubborn house. So we see this parable is about Israel only. Okay, let's keep reading. Now we're on verse 6, and it says, and the rest took his servants and entreated them spitefully and slew them, meaning they killed them. But when the king heard of it, he was wroth. Wroth means irate. Keep that in mind. Moses got wroth, and I was just speaking of that. The king, that speaks of Yahuwah, was wroth. He was irate. And what did he do? He sent forth his armies. And now this speaks of later times, which happened in Jerusalem. After his majesty was rose from the dead and went to heaven, he sent the armies and ran us out of Jerusalem, and that's how we became scattered. But nevertheless, let's keep reading. He sent forth his armies and destroyed those murderers and burnt up their city. That's Jerusalem, okay? So this parable is speaking of us alone. Then he said to his servants, and this is speaking to us in this day, the wedding is ready. That's the kingdom to come. But when they were bidden, those that were bidden were not worthy. Okay, so you see right now that other parable that I just read seeks to make you think that Israel is no longer the main people that are called. But anyway, okay, he said, go you therefore into the highways, and as many as you should find, and bid to the marriage. That's why His Majesty in these latter days, he said, go first unto the sheep of your own house, and then unto the Gentiles. So the word is unto the house of Israel first, and then the leftovers be unto the Gentiles. And he says, so those servants went out into the highways and gathered together as many as they found. So as many people as they found, both bad and good. Okay. And the wedding was furnished with guests. So they just went out and called anybody who would listen. Hey, come to the wedding. And this tells you what's going to happen in the future. This is also prophetic. And when the king came out to see the guests, he saw there a man which didn't have on a wedding garment. Now, this is spiritually discerned, and everybody gets this wrong. So the king comes out, and he looks over to all the guests, and he sees, now that tells you the ones that are supposed to be there have on a certain garment or covering. Some of them snuck up in there, and they didn't have on this covering. And I see a lot of that now. What the covering is, all those who come to the feast have to be grafted in amongst its branches. The head, just like it's written in 1 Corinthians 11:3, the head of the Hebrew man is Christ or the Messiah. The head of the woman is the man, and the head of the Messiah is the Father, Elohim. Okay? It's the same with Gentiles. All Gentiles that are grafted in have to be covered by a Hebrew Israelite man. That's their headship. If you read the book of the Apostle Paul, he said, follow me. When he was talking to the Gentiles, even as I follow Messiah. So a Gentile just can't come out preaching and come to the Son without us, because just like Paul said, for if the first fruit be holy, the lump is also holy. It's set apart. Okay, let's go to verse 12. And the king also said, and he said unto him, friend, how did you come in here not having a wedding garment? And the man was speechless. That means he didn't even know what to say. And then the king said to his servants, bind this man hand and foot, take him out of here, and cast him into outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. That's the lake of fire. So there are a lot of people I see out here preaching and presenting themselves to be branches, and they're actually Gentiles. They're actually heathens. They're according to the seed of their fathers. They're not even Hebrew Israelites, yet they're presenting themselves as elect branches. Okay? And they're going to sneak, that pertains to a lot of them. They're going to sneak into the wedding feast, and they're not going to have on a proper garment. Having your garment means you're going to have to point to, who are you grafted in by? Was it Dale? Was it brother Levi? Was it this, or was it this brother? But the elect are Hebrew Israelite men, and that's what that means. Okay, and it says in verse 14, and this is the end of the parable, for many are called, but few are chosen. Now, we're at 12 minutes. When you go back to that first parable, you see the corruption. First of all, we got a man that prepared some kind of feast, and he sent his daughter. First of all, women ain't called. And then his daughter went out and changed the whole story. And just, and then she makes it sound like whoever just shows up is okay. And then at the end, she says, well, these are the ones who are you to tell your father who's worthy? He told her to go out and look for family members. So that's how Satan works. It's subtle, and the parable sounds all peachy and sweet. I won't even share it unless some of you, who most of you don't read, you'll read it and you'll think I agree with that parable. Many times I'll share something for it as a teaching tool. In other words, I'll share it and then I'll post the actual discernment over it. But I know people just don't read because their attention span is short. But nevertheless, the devil is in the details. And it's only after you compare it with the truth, which is the actual parable that the master, Yahushua, taught. And you saw that his majesty was speaking of, he made a parable of Israel, his people whom he died for. He was saying, I sent servants unto them in the past. Those were his prophets. And what did we do to them? We stoned them and we killed them and we spoke. And then he sent, the king was irate. That's his father. So he sent armies to destroy and burn the city. After we killed his son, that's what he's talking about, because it says in another parable later, he sent his own son and said, surely they won't do nothing to my son. But what did we do? We turned them over to the authorities and they hung them on a tree and whipped them, And so the ones that burned the city were the Gentiles, the Grecians, and the Gentiles, the Euro-Gentile heathen nations who came out of the north. They ransacked Jerusalem, and many of us perished there. That fulfilled the prophecy of Ezekiel when he took hair and Yahuwah commanded him to take a third of it. And I'm getting ahead of myself, and I sometimes get tongue tied. Let me slow down. And he took a third of it and burned it, and another third, and he stabbed about it with the sword, and another third he cast to the wind. That third that was cast to the wind is us in our lands of our captivity. And then, but Yahuwah also commanded Ezekiel to bind a small remnant unto the hem of his garment. Those are the elect in these days that can see through these things. Has nothing to do with us. It's just a matter of grace. Just like the Apostle Paul, he said, as it is now, according to prophecy, there is a remnant amongst us according to the election. And we're here for the glory of Yahuwah, not for ourselves. And it has nothing to do with us being better or anything, because we're not. We have our sins to carry too, and we have our faults. Just because a man be called and y'all get to point out their faults, all prophets had their faults. As it's written, we've all sinned. But you still should listen to them, because those are the ones Yahuwah chose. But getting back to what I said, when the king sent out his armies to destroy that city, that fulfilled that. They burned Jerusalem. They tore it down. Remember when Yahuwah said there will not be one stone left upon another after this. Fast forward 2,000 years, here we are now. And when he said to go out and bid as many that would come, he did. When he sent out the 12, 2 by 2, he said, stay out of the Gentile nations, and into any land of the Samaritans enter you not, but rather go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So we're supposed to take this truth to our own people first, our own first. And then if they will not hear us, it's okay to feed those amongst the Gentiles who have an ear, so that the wedding feast be furnished. But like I said again, there are a lot of perpetrators, which are blasphemers, mimickers, and who make themselves out to be branches, and they're not. The heathen is not called. He was never called because they never knew Yahuwah. He was not sent unto them. The mysteries are only given unto the house of Israel, as it says, and I believe Deuteronomy 29:29. So you have to understand that that parable, a lot of people who shared that obviously don't read and study. That's why it says to study to show thyself approved, okay, unto Yah. So hopefully that was helpful. And like I should have did, I blasted it out. No, I'm not going to call any names of anybody who shared it, because they honestly didn't see. But prayerfully, if they see this video, now you can see the devil in the details, and how Satan will take a parable and he will use his children, probably some heathen or Gentile or somebody who was never called, and they rewrote it and they changed things. They went from servants to his daughter. And then, and instead of sending them to his own people, she just went out, and it becomes corrupt. And because it sounds good to the ear, again, it satisfies an itch in your ear, and it sounds pleasing, you'll share it. And you say, oh, this was a nice, good parable. And you don't realize that it's blasphemous, and it's a lie. Because that parable, the wedding feast, pertains only to Israel. And it speaks of how we mistreated his prophets. So he sent after the destruction more to the house. But he said, if anybody else will listen, let them come, good or bad, so that at least the wedding will be furnished. And then the king himself came out and looked amongst the guests, and he saw which ones snuck up in there, or the bad ones, the ones that came to the guests and didn't have on a covering. That covering means you let yourself in. You didn't come through one of his elect branches. So I just had to address that. I got so angry when I saw it. I was on my way out the door, and I see something like that. And this time I really had to calm down, which that's how the fire of Yahuwah, or the zeal of his name and word should burn in you. You ain't gonna let no lie just get away like that. You're supposed to hate and despise lies. You're supposed to hate those things, and you're supposed to reprove them and even rebuke them, which means speak harshly. So I'm glad I was able to calm down a bit, and hopefully that will open some people's eyes out to watch out. There are tons, hundreds, if not thousands of memes and writings on social media that are blasphemous and corrupt. And you'll never know the difference if you don't know the word. And even if you don't know the word, Yahuwah has sent unto you messengers to show you, and you still don't listen.